Let's first talk about the agenda side. In 1911, two teams of explorers set off from the coast of Antarctica to be the first humans in history to reach the South Pole. One led by Robert Falcon Scott, the Brit, and the other led by Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian. They left for the pole within days of each other, same year, right? Same environment, same conditions, but had radically different outcomes. Uncertain, dangerous environment. Amundsen and his team got there first. Scott and his team got there 34 days later. Amundsen and his team made it back to base camp safe. Scott and every member of his team died 11 miles from a supply depot. Same environment, same goals, same conditions, radically different outcomes. So the difference has to be in the kinds of behaviors and decisions and ways they dealt with things. In our research, we found that the companies and the leaders that did really well, in fact, looked a lot like Amundsen and not like Scott. And there were multiple ways. They had a fanatic discipline, an empirical creativity, and something I would imagine might be very real in your world, a very productive paranoia. What I would like to chat about briefly is the discipline side of it. This idea called the 20-mile march. Imagine that what you have is you have this goal. You want to get to the other side of the country, say walking from San Diego to Maine. And you got two approaches. One is to say, when the weather's good, I'm going to try to go as far as possible. And when the weather's bad, it's hot or it's cold or it's windy, I'm going to sit in my tent and wait for better conditions. Or you can say, I have a 20-mile march. And it doesn't matter whether it's cold or hot or perfect conditions or wind, we're going to do our 20-mile march. And we're going to stay on our 20-mile march no matter what hits us. We are on our 20-mile march utterly relentlessly as we move across. And when we looked at Amundsen and Scott, what we found, in fact, is a 20-mile march philosophy. You had Amundsen who said, I'm going to do 15 to 20 miles a day like clockwork. And you had Scott who would say, I'm going to do big days and then hold back on other days. In early December, Scott wrote in his journal about being stopped by a blizzard. I doubt if any party could travel in such weather. But when Amundsen faced conditions virtually the same, he wrote in his journal, it has been an unpleasant day. Storm, drift, and frostbite. But we have advanced closer to our goal. What we found is very interesting, is staying on a 20-mile march means on the one hand always hitting your march, whatever it is. Every day we get up and we march. We have our agenda, we have our plans, we get up every day and we march. But it also means never going too far. There was a point when Amundsen was 45 miles from the pole. He could have made it in one big push. His team said, let's go to the pole, and they didn't know where Scott was. He said, no, we will still do our march today. They did 17 miles because he knew that if he overreached, overextended, overexposed, and then got hit by an unexpected storm, then they could die. And so the 20-mile march means having this discipline to stay on march like clockwork. And when you look at our companies, think about this for a moment. What's the #1 best performing company from 1972 to 2002? Of all companies on major US stock exchanges. And we might think that it would be Walmart or GE or Intel, all of Berkshire Hathaway, and in fact all those did exceptionally well. But the #1 best performing company of all publicly traded companies was Southwest Airlines. 63 times the market. And an industry that is characterized by forces and disruptions and changes, and yet they marched, and they had a march. We will be profitable every single year, no matter what, which means when 100 cities are clamoring for our business, we will only open as many as we can do and retain our systems and our discipline and our culture. That's 20-mile marching. Now, this notion of discipline, and I think this is very interesting about government environments, we see tremendous consistency in any truly great enterprise. The signature of mediocrity in our data, the signature of mediocrity is not an unwillingness to change. The signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency. Now, in a political world, how do we create consistency? There is a puzzle. I do not know the answer. Now, I want to very briefly comment about the relationship between innovation and discipline, and then go to the unexpected side, and then we're going to have a chance for a conversation. It's very interesting if you look at, say, a company like Intel. At critical junctures, Intel did not have the most innovative chip in its industry. And yet, it beat its industry by 46 times.